If TSM joined LEC, never thought I would ever say those words in my life. Here we are. It doesn't seem likely that that's going to be the case. I don't want to mislead people, but there's definitely reason for that conversation. JNT and I will get into that in just a second. Other things we go over this episode: TL, they can't go 2-0 to save their lives. We'll get into the reason for that. Also, MVP frontrunner talk and Golden Guardians making a move for River. Episode 94, the Clown Fiesta podcast, is on its way right now. JNT 250 and Blue Jay. Okay, JNT, let's start talking about TSM again, because this is the Clown Fiesta podcast and it is an LCS podcast. And what would an LCS podcast be without talking about TSM and their latest story, controversy, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, they're, you have that like little thought in the back of your mind that they're just doing whatever they can to be in sort of the news every single week. When you kind of are creating this pattern of being in the news every single week for whatever it may be, whether it's G flaming one of his players, whether it's TSM signing somebody big, benching somebody on their team, they're just always about. So
yeah, and so the story is going that TSM is considering selling their LCS spot to join the LEC. Now, as far as we can tell, the only thing that they really did was inquire from Misfits how much it would cost to buy the spot. And even though by the sounds of things, there's nothing in motion or anything like that, to me, I just think it's crazy that TSM would even inquire, especially if you just rewind like 1 year. People would be like, why would that even happen? What could go wrong in the next year for that to even be something you would consider or even bring up in a meeting? But clearly they're looking at it. And I guess the three factors that are put in the article by Richard Lewis were they wanted to reduce costs of teams' various esports projects. The level of competition in the region isn't where they think it's where no one wants it to be, let's be honest. And then along with the falling popularity of League as a whole in North America is what the article said.
yeah, I mean, first point that's really interesting is the one where it talks or it speaks to the level of competition in North America. And if you're TSM and you're saying these things or you hear these things from TSM 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, that might make sense. But right now, you look at the TSM that we've seen over the last 2 seasons, they'd be in the bottom. They'd be the last place team in the LEC as well, or just in the bottom three. So to have that as one of the sourced reasons already just confuses me a little bit. The other thing that I also find very interesting is TSM is a North American organization. That is what they're known for, as opposed to the majority of the other orgs that are within the LCS, or I'll rephrase, majority of the popular orgs in the LCS, like Cloud9, like Team Liquid, like 100 Thieves. They have been very active in branching out to, premier esports, like other titles, like, CSGO, Smash, Hearthstone, whatever. And especially, they have players and teams and personalities all around the world. Cloud9, they have their Korean Overwatch team. Cloud9, they did a whole European CSGO thing for a little while there. Team Liquid, their CSGO team, as of late, has been with a lot of European talent. And
isn't TL's Valorant team also European?
That as well.
Or am I wrong?
You're right. And 100 Thieves for a little while, they invested in a Brazilian CSGO team when they first came in, and then the next time they tried to do it, they bought up Renegades, which is an Australian CSGO team. And my point here is that TSM is only North America, and for them to potentially uproot their entire brand and move it over to Europe doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, because they're not established anywhere in the world except for North America. So a move like that doesn't really make any sense, because TSM is the North American brand.
I wouldn't even mind if it was another esport. We're talking about League of Legends here. Like, that is like the most North American League of Legends team is TSM. It's North American League is built on TSM. That's the craziest thing to me. But like beyond that, one of the reasons again that was sourced was cutting costs or reducing costs of the various esports projects. I don't see how that would be the case, because like, well, how much do you think an LCS slot would sell for right now? When it sold for EG a couple of years ago, it was like 30 million or something like that. The LCS has shrunk in popularity. wouldn't it be less valuable now? Not to mention, the team that would be selling their spot would be TSM. The LCS is just less valuable with TSM out of it. So the people that would be buying that spot would have to say, do I want to play in an LCS without TSM? Like, that takes away a lot of the fandom. Yes, I know, reduced fandom over the last year because of how bad they've been, but still a significant portion of fandom in the LCS would leave if TSM left, I would have to imagine. And so I don't know if you would make up that money, right? Like, what Misfits sold for, what, like 45 to 50 million was what they were saying. I don't know if TSM would be able to get that for their spot because they're not selling their brand away, they're just selling their spot.
Yeah, I
So I
mean,
feel like that would be a net loss.
yeah, you're already going to have some sort of a loss when you transition from the LCS to the LEC because it seems that LEC slots are more valuable than LCS slots, just in terms
Mm-hmm.
of the price tag of what we've seen with this Misfits buy. The reported number is, I think, 46 million. And as you
Okay.
said, the most recent LCS spot was 30 million. And even before that, I guess it was Schalke 2 years ago now. Because who bought in for Schalke? I can't even remember now.
Uh,
That I
was it BDS?
Oh yeah, it was okay. It was BDS, and what that was a year and a half ago, almost 2 years now, and that is, I think they sold for like 25 million. So I can sort of see where TSM is coming from in terms of making that up financially because it does seem that LEC slots are on the rise, and I think that's because the LEC is in general a much bigger league than the LCS, whether it's viewership, player base, interest, sponsorship, competitiveness, obviously. So if TSM is looking to potentially make more money, it does make sense for them to move over to the LEC. However, as I previously mentioned, them being the North American brand, I don't think would yield the results that they might theorize. First of all, I think should TSM move to Europe, they would just instantly become like the meme team, where if they're
I think
not
they would
in,
be the meme. Yeah, I think they're already the meme team in Europe. They're
oh,
not even over there yet. People chant TSM in the stands. They're not even in the league yet, and that's not a good chant. TSM. That's a we're making fun of this team.
and I don't even know if like the European fans would even accept TSM as like a recognized team because they're so North American and they're already such a known quantity. Like when a brand new organization comes into a league like a BDS, I don't know, like a Mad Lions in Europe, like an XL, there's no really base that players or teams or fans can judge them on. It's just kind of it's an unknown and you kind of go from there and you have to find a way to build your brand and everything, and TSM is already established. And like I said, I don't think moving to the LEC is going to fix these financial problems that they think might exist in North America because LEC is suffering the same in terms of viewership and everything like that.
The TSM would instantly be the punching bag, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I guess if you want to look at the good things about it, is like people would be watching the TSM games, they would just be cheering against TSM. So it would be valuable for the LEC. Like, oh, we have more eyeballs on it. Like, if TSM joined for like BDS, for example, more people would watch the LEC. So there's that. However, I don't think TSM would be accepted into the league. Like, we're just gonna accept TSM, the league that's got the CEO who's known for bullying players and staff. Hmm. Like, I feel like that would be hard stopped by the LEC. I feel like they'd be like, no, we're gonna sell to somebody else, anyone else. Although I say that, and wasn't there actually like some controversy with Heretics or whatever?
Yeah.
Like people weren't getting paid, so like I guess there's some bad PR on that team as well.
I think when you're willing to fork out the 45, $46 million for the spot, they probably, don't really give a fuck.
No, they would though, because it's not that if you don't get the 45 million from that team, it's not like you can't get 45 from another team, right? It's they would just choose like let's say well in this case it's I suppose it's possible that it happened that TSM put in a bid for LEC and LEC was like no, we're going to go with Heretics instead because we can get 45 like 45 million from TSM and 45 million from Heretics is the same thing, you know?
Yeah, but I
It's
guess
just like
I
let's
think
just not take the team that's got the owner that's known for bullying.
yeah, and I think part of that goes back to SM being known quantity and their branding being solely around North America. And if you have Team Heretics, for example, whose Spanish team and Spanish players and in the LEC like Mad Lions are very very popular and yield a lot of viewership, that just makes more sense to do than to accept a team like a TSM. I guess the main scenario that I was talking about is, let's say TSM was the only team that was willing to put up that cash to buy the spot, then obviously you say yes. But as you correctly
Gotcha.
note, like
Yeah.
if you have competition and you have all these other organizations coming in trying to bid for the spot, the LEC is going to choose what team that they think is going to bring the most to their league. You know, they can benefit from each other. And like I said, I don't think that TSM is in a position to really do that.
Yeah, it'd be most potential upside with least potential downside. And TSM comes with a lot of downside. Even if they do come with some upside, there's a lot of down with the whole controversy that surrounded Reggie for the last year or so. Um, the other thing that too, like I just because I mentioned earlier, like I don't even know if TSM would make money off of doing this. Maybe the players are less expensive in Europe, but I don't think they're that significantly less expensive that you would save the I don't even know how many millions you would lose by selling your LCS spot.
Yeah, but I mean, also
That's another thing to
as a
consider.
new team coming into a league unknown, you're also going to have to pay most likely a premium for some players to get them to come to your team as opposed to another team.
True. Yeah, true. Especially a team that like TSM's desperate right now.
Yeah.
They need to spend, whether they're in North America or Europe, they need to spend because their brand for a decade has been winning and now they're not winning.
Yeah,
So,
and
yeah.
sort of unfortunately for TSM at this point, they're one player who has maybe any name value and could be a player to build around in the future is Spica, and when you move him over to the LEC, he's going to count as an import. That's also probably going to hurt your chances if you wanted to go that route. If Spica wanted to stick with TSM and go to EU, you're already at a bit of a deficit there, being the first kind of North American import into LEC. That would just be funny in general. But I couldn't
Well,
imagine that
was it
TSM.
not imports back in the day? Because there were NA people that played in Europe. It just there was no import rules at that time. Like Prawley, for example. Like there was just no imports. Do you know how that works?
When Probably was coaching.
No, Prawley played for H2K. H2, yeah, I'm pretty sure he played for H2K.
Played for them. I think he coached. He was the mid on H2K.
Oh, you want to look that up? I thought he played. I thought he played in Europe.
Look it up really quickly, but I don't think he was playing because he stopped playing for complexity pretty early on.
Okay,
Yeah, he was only a coach on.
maybe I could be, I could be making a mistake. My bad. I thought he played as well, and he didn't play in Europe at all.
Nope.
Oh, well then, my bad. So there's never been a North American player to play in Europe?
I mean, in the LEC/EULCS, there's Cody Sun who's in the LFL right now. If you want to count that,
Right.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't because it's not
Yeah, I
the
wouldn't
major
either.
region.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, so no, there hasn't
Um,
been any, and I don't think there will be any unless it's some big player whom TSM could bring over with them, and the only one that I see possible at this current moment would be Spica. But
on
from
a
Spica's perspective, why the fuck would he want to do that? Because he's going to a harder league, with a team who's not going to be in a great position, salary wise, competitive wise, and there's more money to be made in North America. So it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, sort of talk about it from an LCS perspective. I think
That's
that
where I was going next. What does
yeah,
the LCS look like,
yeah, I think the
right?
impact of
Without TSM?
TSM, I think the impact of TSM possibly leaving is obviously not as great as it was in the past. TSM is still obviously a big name brand and a team that still brings a lot of fans and viewers to the league, which I think is very, very important. However, at the same time, with esports being a very player centric sort of fan base rather than a team centric fan base, we've kind of seen a lot of the floaters move to other teams ever since the departure of Bjergsen and Doublelift. Yes, obviously the TSM fans still exist, and yes, there are a lot of hardcore TSM fans, but the majority of those fans back in the day who were Bjergsen supporters, Doublelift supporters, Biofrost supporters, have sort of branched out to other teams, and I don't think that the impact would be big as before. I think the LCS could survive because I think there are a lot of prominent NA organizations that could come into the LCS if they wanted to. That pop into my mind right away would be if Envious wanted to come back, because I think Envy and Optic, one of them just bought the other. Remember, I don't remember if Optic bought Envy or if Envy bought Optic, but one of those teams could do it. Like something like FaZe Clan could do it. I can't really think of any other teams, but there's a ton in North America that would have the capital to be able to do it. So I think you could easily replace TSM with another big brand that could draw in a similar number of viewers that could be leaving.
The other thing with TSM is like I'm still not convinced that they can't get back some of their fans as long as they don't CLG it and go. I don't know how many years has it been since CLG was good.
Season 9
2019 or
summer.
something. As long Yeah, as long as TSM can actually bounce back next year, I could see them bouncing back as far as fandom goes as well. Maybe not to where they were before, but you could get a lot of their fans back, I believe. I just think that you want to show that you're not just completely dog shit on the regular basis like CLG has been. And so I don't know. I guess I one bad year in North America and TSM's looking to inquire about an LEC slot. That just seems so crazy to me. I don't know. It seems nuts. The other thing that I'm curious about is like I would want to know how LEC fans feel about that. Like, do European fans even want TSM in the LEC? Probably some of them do, but probably some of them just don't. Um, I'd be interested to know. I know most of our audience is LCS, but if anybody listens that is a big viewer of the LEC, I'd be curious to know your opinion on whether you want TSM in the LEC. I guess drop a comment if you're watching on YouTube. Uh,
Uh-oh. Okay, froze.
what's that? Oh,
Oh yeah, sorry, you froze for a sec.
oh, my bad.
If you want to repeat what you're saying.
No, I was just saying I want to know what LEC fans think of TSM possibly joining the LEC. I shouldn't say possibly joining, but about that idea. Like, if I want to know, like, if you're a big LEC fan, I want to know, would you even want to see TSM in that league?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I feel like they would have to have some sort of player that they could bring over, or a big signing early on that would draw a lot of fans and draw a lot of interest. Like, obviously, in a world where TSM still has Bjergsen, that I think is a move that could make complete sense because Bjergsen is European. There was even rumor, I forget what year it was. Maybe it was season 9 or it was season 10 where Bjergsen was a free agent, and that was like before TSM gave him part ownership in the team, where there was rumors that he was going to potentially go to Europe, specifically and join Fnatic. I think that was the main that he was rumored to have, and a lot of fans were super excited about that, to see the best player in the LCS go back to Europe, which had at that time established themselves as the better league than the LCS. So I feel like the only way that it would draw the interest of European fans if they brought somebody big. That would have to be, or like they sign a big name from the LEC to come to them. Like, if this would never happen, but if they signed Caps or they signed Perks or they signed Reckless or somebody like that.
Yeah. Anyways, really interesting stuff. That's something I guess we'll kind of wait and see what the future comes, because maybe there's more about this that comes out and maybe there's not. I don't know. Maybe this is the end of it and we never talk about it again, but definitely crazy when you start to hear about the biggest team in the LCS history considering leaving the league. That's just insane to me. Is there anything else on TSM you want to talk about?
Well, obviously, they had an okay week by their standards, I guess. They got a 1-1, losing to Team Liquid on Saturday, beating Guardians Sunday. But the main thing to note was people found out, I think it was on Tuesday of this past week, that Seoul had asked the team to move him down to Academy and to bring up Solo, its top lane starter, because he wanted TSM to make playoffs, and he thought that Solo needed to come into the team for TSM's best chance to do that, which is honestly what I thought was going to happen from the beginning. I was surprised, when TSM announced their initial roster changes that they were signing Solo, that Solo was not going to be the starter. Because as I previously mentioned in 2 weeks ago now, when TSM made these big roster moves, it felt like they were giving up on the season, and that they were trying to figure out, what players they were potentially going to keep around for their Academy and LCS projects in 2023. And when you dump all these rookies into the team, you're taking out your veteran players. Because they took out Uni, they took out Tactical, they took out Mia, and they put in Instinct, Chime, and Soul. That to me just signaled that they weren't really going for it. And now
Yeah,
to
I think
have
that's right.
but now to have Soul removed from the team and bring in Solo, it just kind of feels like you've had 2 wasted weeks, or 2 weeks that could have been more time spent with Solo in the main team working towards playoffs if that was the goal. So right then and there, like that just says to me that Seoul wasn't on the same page as TSM, or TSM wasn't on the same page with their players. Because if the goal was to make playoffs, Seoul shouldn't have been in. It should have been Solo. So it just
See,
once
I don't
again
think
feels like a
I
lot of confusion going on in the TSM.
there is confusion, but I don't look at it as like they're not on the same page. I think they did kind of let go to say like, look, this isn't our year. Let's see what we have for next year. And I think they probably were on the same page with Soul. Like, yeah, let's start an LCS. But once he got there, he realized, oh, like I don't belong here. And I think that's okay for a new player to not really know like what they're getting into when they first join the LCS, right? It seems like TSM was totally fine with saying like, look, we don't expect you to pop off or anything in the LCS. Do your best. Let's see what you got. And he realized like I'm just not ready for it yet. I'd probably be better off learning more in academy. And to me, that's totally fine. I don't think putting Solo back in is the org being like, never mind, we want to make a playoff run. I think they still know that like playoffs doesn't really mean much for them. Even if they make 7th or 8th, like they don't really got the squad to make a good playoff push. I think it's just I think it's pretty much just Soul realizing he's not ready for LCS, and that's all it is to me, honestly, because you still have your bot lane swapped out as well.
Yeah, but I mean, if I guess I mean it's hard to say, but if I was Soul in this situation, I would think that you would want to continue to play in the LCS and sort of gain as much information and knowledge as possible, despite you most likely getting shit on a weekly basis, because he is a very new player. It was unlikely that he was jump into this league and mashing, your average top laner in the LCS. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe TSM and Soul, they kind of recognized with each other that he is a player that they want to invest in long term, and Soul was, looking out for the betterment of the team in that case. But at the same time, like, the LCS is a business, and TSM has the opportunity to go out and sign a player that's better than Soul. They're probably most likely going to do that. And I feel like in these kinds of scenarios, especially when you're on lesser performing teams, I feel like as a player, you sometimes got to be a little bit selfish and prioritize yourself rather than your team when you really don't know what's going to happen down the line.
Yeah. I don't know. To me, I'm not too bothered by it because it definitely, from all indications, are that Soul was the one that initiated the hey, I need to go down to academy. And if that's the case, that's fine. I feel like if you're TSM, they did the right thing in saying that, like, look, we're not doing anything this year. Let's put in these rookies. Let's see what they got. And then when you have a rookie come back to you and say, look, hey, coach, I'm not ready for this. I'm just getting shit on. I'm not learning anything when I'm getting hard smacked. I think it's okay for the coach to be like, no problem. We have someone else that can go in that has played LCS games and is serviceable. It's no problem. If you're Soul and you're new to the team, not only just new to the league, but new to that team specifically, you don't want to be a burden on your team either. That's not fun and it's not good for your mental, and that could also stunt your growth in the long term as well. So for once, I actually don't think TSM did anything wrong here, honestly.
And
For once.
and I guess what I would say to that, and blame TSM, but if that was the case and they were trying to sort of foster, a healthy environment where players are going to be able to work well with each other and it's not just going to be like a flame fest because somebody's inting, then shouldn't have had Soul in there in the first place. Like I don't know what to say then.
Yeah.
If the case was that you wanted to create a good environment, you didn't want your team to just be getting shit on because of one player, then have a veteran player that is more than serviceable and has proven to be serviceable even when subbed in emergency situations. We saw it when he got subbed into FlyQuest season 10. We saw it when he subbed in for CLG very, very briefly at the beginning of season 11. We're seeing it right now. He even had a pretty good weekend.
He actually had a pretty good weekend
in this first week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like we've always talked about Solo as a player who's been like done a little dirty because of this whole toxic sort of personality that has kind of been pushed onto him. But we've always thought, I mean, I guess speak for you, but I think the both of us have thought that he's a good player and should be starting in the LCS.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the wide community sentiment, is that he belongs in the LCS. But the other thing too is, and this is where it's speculation, it's possible that Solo brought this on himself as far as being like that, having that toxic
Oh, maybe like
you know, like that could be his own fault. We're not in the scrim room, so we don't know, but like a lot of times the players that are known for being toxic are toxic. So, I mean, it is what it is. But as far as like the performance from this past weekend, TSM actually looked pretty good in the Golden Guardians game. I know Golden Guardians isn't looking the greatest right now, but that game to me, I actually thought TSM played really well. We mentioned that Solo had a good weekend. I thought Chime's Bard was fucking awesome. We finally saw the Bard, finally, and I was really impressed with it. That was kind of an insane performance from the Chime on the Bard. Although, I mean, I would expect that to happen when you have a one trick playing his one trick, but it was nice to see.
Definitely think TSM played well in that Golden Guardians game, but don't get it twisted. Guardians was shitting the bed in that game. That might have been the worst.
I thought Golden Guardians looked much worse the day before.
Really, I think that was the worst top jungle performance I've ever seen in my life. Not even joking. That game.
Mm. Well, I mean, one thing we'll agree on is they didn't look good this weekend.
River, I'm pretty sure I haven't watched the game or looked at. Not that I haven't watched the game. I haven't gone back and watched the game closely. I don't think he hit a single wall stun. An important wall stun that wasn't in that first tower dive.
We're good on TSM?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move over to the Golden Guardian stuff. Before we do, I just want to remind people that are new to the channel, we do these episodes every week. So you could find us live on twitch.tv/clownfiesta podcast every Monday night around midnight EST or just after. And then on YouTube, we're going to we release pretty much Tuesday early mornings, sometime around 4 a.m.-ish. We try to get the episodes up as soon as possible. J&T is usually pretty good at that. So be sure to subscribe to the Clown Fiesta podcast if you enjoy the content. And also you could find us on like Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. We put ourselves on a lot of different platforms, so just look for the Clown Fiesta podcast and you can find us. Okay, let's talk to Dig stuff, because Dig decided to make a trade. Most people would say a good trade. It didn't pan off, not in the early going anyway.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Golden Guardians get another 0-2 week. I think, if I'm not 1-5 in their last 6 games, which is not the best look. We thought that Golden Guardians, when they were 3-3 at the time, actually had a chance to contend with some of these top teams, and we we felt like the main problem with the team was they lacked that, those instincts and that early game coordination, someone to put it all together. And River, being kind of the rock of Dignitas, him coming over to Golden Guardians seemed like sort of a match made in heaven, where Golden Guardians needed a more proactive jungler in the early game who's good at playmaking and can really help the team when it comes to early game coordination, objective fights, and late game objective and team fights and everything like that. However, it didn't get off to the greatest start.
I still think that they made the right move. I do think River's an upgrade, but from what we saw this weekend, it doesn't fix their other problems. The constants that you and I have been on and on about this year, their solo lanes fucking suck. Let's just say it as it is. Their solo lanes are trash.
Yep.
I would be so embarrassed if I was Licorice to have a guy like Solo who wasn't playing well in Academy, is what I've heard constantly, even someone in the live chat saying it. I've heard that from the analyst desk on LCS. I've heard that so many times. Solo hasn't been looking good in Academy. He comes up and just smashes you? Like, that's embarrassing, man. How many games, like, dude, yeah, this is getting into this is becoming a weekly thing where I flame Golden Guardians. I think Licorice has just gotten worse and worse and worse as the whole year has gone on. And Ablaze Olive is free kills mid as per usual. Face checking, blowing flash early, not even getting wards down. Like, he is so free ganks if he doesn't have a mobile champion. And so it's like, oh, you put him on Seraphine? Okay, let's go kill him. Gank, forehead, done. Like, that's not a hard game plan. You know what I mean? So, yeah, even though I think River will be a lot better than Pride Soccer just because you'll have more proactivity and heavy ganking, I think you have other problems to fix, and maybe they could fix them, but you're running out of time. So, yeah, not exactly the greatest start for Golden Guardians. That clearly they decided they're good enough to make a playoff run, otherwise they wouldn't have made the trade.
Yeah, and I guess the thing that I thought was most interesting about that trade is there was nobody else involved in the trade. A few LCS trades that we've seen before, the most recent ones that I can think of would have been Licorice when he got traded from FlyQuest to Golden Guardians, and there was the the one between FlyQuest and Cloud9 at the in between season 10 and 11, where they also traded Licorice and a bunch of their academy players, and that was kind of how FlyQuest did they became like C9 Academy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So in this trade specifically, it was only River. Presumably, Dig was going to get a lot of money out of it. Maybe that's something that they're going to be budgeting and using towards next year, which I guess seems to be the case because when you look at it from the Dignitas side of things, they moved Gamsu down to Academy. Their Academy top laner Hoon has now become the starter. Their Academy jungler XU has been brought up to play for the main team, where a completely like rookie amateur player is now stepping into their Academy role. And Spawn, their Academy ADC, is continuing to play on the starting roster as opposed to Neo, who's still down in Academy. So it feels like Dignitas is hitting the reset button with this. Obviously, the only remaining starters on that team now are Blue and Biofrost. And apart from River, I think everybody can agree upon the fact that Blue and Biofrost were the other two strong members of this team. And it was fairly clear that Gamsu and their bot lane, or not their bot lane, sorry, their ADC, was kind of what was holding them back.
Yeah. And again, Biofrost hasn't had the greatest summer split, but not nearly the biggest issue that team's facing right now.
And one thing that I thought was interesting, like we said, it was kind of it's clear that Dignitas is hitting the reset button. People were calling for Dignitas to sub in Insanity for Blue, and I feel like people haven't been paying attention to Blue because I mentioned this in Spring Split. I had him as my third All Pro mid, although I think that third spot was up for grabs between a lot of different players. I think you had Takui, I had Blue. There were other names like Abadage getting thrown in there, Jojo, because I think everybody could agree upon the fact that Bjergsen and Fudge were the 1-2 that split. So there were many names going around for third place, but in sitting at last place with Dignitas, Blue is still proven to be a very solid player in the league. He problem early on was he would die pretty much all the time. He was kind of going a Blaze Olive mode for about the first 4 weeks of the spring split. But ever since then, he's become actually a really strong laner, great team fighter. He does kind of make some int plays at times, but I think that's it's a bit of a byproduct of Dignitas just being so bad and often being very behind in games. And Blue is normally the strongest member on the team, playing some sort of carry like an Akali, Victor, or an Azir. And he's got to be the guy to make those plays and to sort of get Dig back into the game. So hearing a lot of fans' reaction to these Dignitas moves and them not putting Insanity over Blue, I'm just kind of like, yeah, obviously, like, why put Insanity in over Blue? Last time we saw Insanity, he looked like complete trash, and Blue is actually looking really solid right now. So I think, obviously Dignitas is not going to win a lot more games this split. People are saying that they're not going to win a single game for the rest of the split, but Blue and Biofrost seem like the two guys that you'd want to keep on this roster moving forward to 2023 and use that extra River money potentially to bring in another great player.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that you need to swap out Blue at all. I think it's pretty common for LCS fans to see LCS teams struggling and be like, time to put in the Academy player. They're just better than the LCS player. Even if they see them having success in Academy, we've seen many times success in Academy does not equal success in the LCS. So I'm kind of with you. I don't really think that a swap is needed in the mid lane. I think there's a lot of other problems with the Dig roster.
Yeah, Dig's got some problems.
As far as Golden Guardians goes, though, specifically from this past weekend, they looked like shit against CLG, but for me, it was actually like a draft gap. CLG takes Yone blind, and then you draft Seraphine and Gnar as your solo lanes. Like, who's supposed to lane against the Yone there? That doesn't really make any sense to me. So I thought, and then on that note, Dokla took over the game with the Yone, so that was not really a big surprise to me. There was the int by Stixay where like he goes full double lift mode and dashes in and dies on the on the Lucian, but to me there was other problems that led to the poor weekend from Golden Guardians.
Yeah, the Golden Guardians just, while we recognize that River will probably help them out in the long run. Obviously, it's his first time playing with the team. Presumably, they didn't get to scrim for very long because the trade announcement came out on Tuesday. So that leaves you only Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to scrim before the weekend. So it was probably likely that Golden Guardians wasn't going to look the best. However, you get shit on in both games. Specifically, shit on by TSM, who's also not looking very good at all, and who also is playing with a new player coming into the weekend. Just not a good look.
Yeah, there's like you could say it's going to take us time to gel, guys, and that's true, but like you shouldn't be making that move unless you're confident you're going to be able to gel quickly with said player, because you're running low on time, as is everyone in the league, right? You only got a couple of weeks left of LCS, and like I said at the start of the segment, your problems in mid and top haven't changed, in my opinion. I still think their bot lane is fine, more than serviceable bot lane, so I don't think there's any issues there. I think River will be great. I really am pointing at solo lanes, Olive and Licorice, to improve if this team is going to want to make a run, which it seems like that's what they want to do if you make a trade this late in the season. You think that you can make something with that trade. It's just not looking good early so far. 0-2. All right, what's next, J&T 250?
Well, we got a little three-way tie going on. Third place at the moment. Cloud9 and CLG all sitting at 8 and 5 with the standings. However, kind of look at the trajectory of all of these teams, and if you can remember, both TL and CLG started off the split going 3-0, while Cloud9 started off the split going 0-3. So if you can do the quick maths there, since that first week, Cloud9 is 8 and 2, and both Team Liquid and CLG is 5 and 5. Obviously, the sort of Team Liquid tradition now is they go 1 and 1 every single week. Kind of funny, but also a little bit concerning when you look at some of the opponents that they faced. Dropping games to lost a game to TSM, they lost a game to FlyQuest, but I think a little bit understandable. Their other losses to Cloud9, EG, and Thieves. But I think you're mainly looking at those games against FlyQuest and TSM, where you're really losing out on your regular season seeding for the playoffs when you're losing to teams that are below you in the standings.
Yeah, and so wait, we're going with TL first?
Sure.
The thing with TL and it's funny because I called into Hotline League about this tonight, not planning to, but I ended up talking about Team Liquid and trying to pinpoint like what the issues are. And the community sentiment that I've heard so many times is that TL is playing slow. And the conversation that I had mostly with Mark and Bwippo on tonight's episode is like, they're not really a slow team. And I kind of agree because they do consistently, whether it's slow or not, they consistently do get gold leads in the early game. So even if it was playing slow or not playing slow, it wouldn't matter how fast you're playing if you're getting gold leads. What I do think is puzzling is how every week it seems to be a new issue that arises for them to not be able to pull up the win after getting the early game leads. Last week we saw Hansama. They put the game in his hands on the Lucian. He flashed over the wall and just he inted multiple times in that game. And so you point to there, the game against CLG, people pointed to Bjergsen and getting outlaned by Palafox. And then Bwippo hasn't been consistent on the regular. So it's like every week it feels like there's a different area to point to. And it's like it's really hard to pinpoint what the biggest issue is with Team Liquid. It's just they're inconsistent, but there doesn't seem to be one thing that carries over from week to week that you could point to. And that's one of the other things that I asked Bwippo, and it doesn't seem like there's anything in his mind that's like, this is regularly an issue, or at least nothing he wanted to share on Hotline that is a regular issue that needs to be fixed. And I find that that's really, really interesting for a team that struggles with consistency to not have even one thing that you could point to. Like, this is what we need to improve. And so if I'm a TL fan, I'm a little worried that there's like, yeah, we're not winning, we're not going 2-0 any weeks, and we don't know why.
Yeah, it's a little bit alarming because, as you kind of mentioned, it's not like TL is a horrible team or anything, or playing too slow or whatever you want to call it. It's that they are consistently inconsistent. Like, individual players are just having poor games too often, and it seems to be a different player every single time. Like you mentioned, there are some games where Bwippo is completely smashing the game, taking over the game through his own lane, and there's other times where he just seems completely ineffective. Then you've had a couple of Bjergsen games where the main one that sticks out is the Lissandra game against. Lissandra game was against EG.
Palafox.
Or yeah, sorry.
Palafox played the Azir, right? And
yeah. And basically, he picked this roaming champion and didn't really do a whole lot with it. And then you have the Hansama game, and it seems like we said this before that Santorin and Bjergsen seem to sort of be the rocks of this team and the main thing that was sort of keeping them together. But as I mentioned last week, Santorin and Bjergsen are also kind of now jumping into the pool of, oh, they're kind of having a bad game every so often, and it's kind of throwing off the dynamic of the team. And it's funny that you say, and they even said on Hotline League that the community sentiment around Team Liquid is that they're a slow team, and I think I've heard Doublelift talk about this many, many times on his own YouTube channel, where he goes and reviews the Team Liquid losses after they happen in the LCS. And one thing that he sort of identified is that they're actually a good early game team, but a bad late game team. I find that kind of interesting because they have these kind of notoriously good late game team fighters, and Bjergsen, Santorin, Hansama, and Core JJ. I feel like all of those players have sort of been known to be not really dominant in the early game, but very intelligent when it comes to positioning in the mid and late game. Allows them to sort of scale up and win team fights through them being better players than the opponents. But it feels like we're kind of in like opposite land here, where TL seems to be failing in the mid and late game when that's supposed to be their bread and butter.
Yeah, it's not something you would think to point to when it comes to this roster. You wouldn't ever suggest the idea, like before seeing them play, you wouldn't ever suggest coming into this season that their issue is going to be late game decision making. It's just not what you would expect. This weekend, though, even their game against Cloud9, I didn't really think they played that bad. I thought they played pretty good. They just, like, one time they didn't check Baron after a little skirmish in River. They didn't check Baron. C9 just took Baron, and then the game slowly ended after that. It was like, that's not like that's not something you could take away and point to like, oh, next week we'll check Baron. Like, yeah, sure. It's like it's always one new little thing, and that this week it just happened to be that they didn't check Baron after a skirmish, and that completely lost them the game. Where like I thought, even though C9 was playing well against them as well, I thought TL still played good in that game. So it's like you walk away with a loss after a game that you didn't really play too bad.
Yeah, and you
Which I would have to imagine it's frustrating. I have to imagine that's really frustrating.
In that game specifically between Team Liquid and Cloud9, you could really see the dynamic of the two team comps that each picked, because Cloud9 picked this very aggressive early game team comp with the early Kalista Renata lane, lock in the Heck Room in the second part of the draft, and you're like, okay, Cloud9 is playing through bot lane. Exactly what they did until, they were like, okay, we're going to trade for the top side of the map. Saw Whippo get a solo kill on Fudge at what was pretty much just as both top laners were hitting level 6. Fudge then got redove top lane, a couple minutes later, and then Jensen also got 4-man top lane. Cloud9 was trading for a dragon on the bot side. And to me, I thought both teams were doing a good job of playing to their win conditions. Team Liquid was accepting the fact that, hey, Cloud9 is throwing all their resources bot lane. We're going to sack the drags. We're going to play for Rift Heralds and top lane. TL took both Rift Heralds. They took top tower. They got 3 kills in the top side of the map in the first 15 minutes. And going up to, that Baron that sort of seemed to swing the game into Cloud9's favor, to me, it just doesn't really seem to be anything more than just unfortunate timing, where Team Liquid, it looked like they thought they had a safe base, but it just seemed at that point like, get the sudden realization, it's like, oh wait, we don't really have vision of Baron. Like, they could possibly be on this, because in their minds they're probably thinking that Cloud9 is also going to back as well, but Cloud9 has a really good sustain within their comp, having the Heck Room to tank Baron, and then huge DPS with Kalista and Azir, and just kind of seemed to be that, oh, we're setting up for this big soul fight, but oh shit, we just gave over Baron, and now we've just lost control of the whole map. We lose soul, then next Baron, and Cloud9 just kind of has control of the game, and it's up to Cloud9 to lose the game. They almost did that after taking the second Baron and then getting wiped in a team fight. Luckily, Berserker kind of distracted Team Liquid with killing Santorin off to the side and kind of delayed them from potentially ending the game. So it just seemed to be that TL fumbled the bag when it came to the climactic moment of the game, which was 2 minutes before Dragon Soul.
Yeah, when I looked at this game from the lens of Cloud9 more specifically, I thought Cloud9 played really, really good. There was the one throw where Blabber gets a little bit excited, and he goes ham, and he gets the kitchen sink thrown at him. He gets polymorphed. I think he got Everfrosted as well. But I think he thinks, I can live here, because I think they had Ocean Soul at that point. So maybe just a slight little miscalculation as to how good Ocean Soul is. Other than that, though, I thought Blabber actually had a great game. That's the other thing too, is I think Cloud9 is looking so much better when Blabber is on those champions that he could go ham on. We saw him on Olaf. We know what that's going to look like. That's nothing new. He will go ape shit and he'll run over a game. That's what happened. Same thing with the Heck Room. it was a really nice dive bot lane. They had the flash bot because they had the better bot lane. Who did they have? They had Callista and
Renata.
who was it? What was the bot lane? Callista Renata into the Lulu Cog. You're going to be able to punish that if you focus that lane. Blabber went behind the tower and forced. It wasn't even a tower dive. There was no minions crashing yet. It was like, I don't know. What do you call that?
I don't know. He just ran through the tower.
A lane gank from the other
Yeah.
side. Yeah, like I don't know. It's just a good heads up play. They have no flash. You can punish this, and so I don't know. Much better weekend out of Cloud9. I know you pointed to they're the what did you say? They're like 8-2 or whatever since or something like that.
Yeah.
That to me is a misleading stat. They had a good weekend this weekend. I can't just pretend last weekend they're 2-0. They didn't look like shit. Like last weekend was not a good look. So definitely a good look out of C9 this week, but I'm not ready to just hop on the hype train after one good weekend, especially when they kind of looked like dog shit last weekend. So good sign, because we need to see this out of Cloud9 as playoffs approach. I will be a lot more confident if I see it again this weekend coming up. That level of gameplay, let's say.
Yeah, but it at least, when you want to talk about a team improving and want to see good things from a team, it's good to go out and get a 2-0 against two teams that are probably going to be in the hunt for playoffs in FlyQuest and Team Liquid. So
they looked great.
Yeah. I feel like there's not a lot to talk about with this FlyQuest game I played because it kind of just, Blabber playing Olaf, and FlyQuest took 2 bad fights, gave Olaf about, 1.5k gold in the early game, and it was just kind of over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, FlyQuest kind of just miscalculated what Blabber is going to do on Olaf. I keep saying Blabber Olaf, but that's an Olaf thing more than it's just a. Like, don't get me wrong, it's like bigger because it's a Blabber Olaf, but any Olaf should do that. Like, I think FlyQuest should have known what they were getting into when you're taking fights against that champion. As far as CLG goes this weekend, good weekend, but I didn't learn much because I thought their opponents played like shit. I thought CLG looked good, but like I don't know, like I thought Golden Guardians had an awful weekend, and I thought Dignitas also had an awful weekend. Luger was like 5-0 or some 5-1 by like 10 minutes. Like that game was just. What do you take away from those games?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I guess what I would say for the first game, the CLG Golden Guardians game, that seemed more to me Golden Guardians being terrible than CLG or anything. Not to say
I
that's
agree.
flame towards CLG, but as you say,
of course not.
I don't. It's hard to learn something from the game. Your opponents are just inting into you, and similar to the Dignitas game, what in the fuck was going on bot lane? Like that shit was just crazy. That is some solo queue shit right there.
It was a nightmare game out of Dignitas. That was one where you would probably FF it at like 5-10 minutes if you're in scrims and just go next. But
yeah,
the game against Golden Guardians, an area, because I don't want to just say, oh, Golden Guardians played bad. An area where I do think they actually played really well is I thought Contract had a lot of nice gank angles. The Poppy was great. I don't know how they got the Poppy. I think that Golden Guardians should have taken that. I think they took like Viego or something instead. Which again, I normally, this, JNT, I hate pointing at draft. Golden Guardians draft fucking sucked this weekend. But in all fairness, Golden Guardians has had a good, they've had good drafts so far this summer split. So it's like I could give them like a weekend off. When it comes to giving credit to CLG, my guy from this past weekend was Contracts. I thought he looked really good.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. After that, we got what?
Reached permaban status in L. Camp just seems so simplistic and powerful in the early game to where it really doesn't matter what other jungler you're picking in the early game. Poppy is always going to be strong. You kind of have to make that decision to where, okay, we want to sort of counter pick, because I don't even know if there's. I wouldn't say that there's a lot of counter picking going on in jungle right now, but would kind of have to make that early game sacrifice, pick a late game scaling jungler. But Poppy is just as effective in the late game as she is in the early game, just maybe not as strong as some of the other champions. It just feels like Poppy is strong in every phase of it, but would need to be changed so that wasn't the case. Maybe like just the percentage health damage on her Q or something like that, because that's always been the strong suit of Poppy. She's always good at the tank, so maybe that, but I'm not sure. The summary of the story is you should be first picking Poppy. Also, because I think it's a good flex to top lane right now with the top champions that are in the pool. I'm really surprised that we haven't seen any top lane Poppy come out with like some some flex picks in the draft. I've been saying it for like 2 to 3 weeks now that like, yo, this is a poppy angle where you flex a top lane and then you get jungle counter pick where you can pick some late game like epic shit like a Kindred or something. But I don't know.
Well, that's why I mentioned I'm surprised Golden Guardians didn't take the Poppy after CLG blinded the Yone. I was like, I feel like that would be a pretty good, like, I don't know why you're taking Viego there. It just doesn't seem like the pick to me, but I mean, I don't know. What the hell do I know? And then Dokla absolutely shit on them with the Yone, which I think that's kind of deserved. Hard punished.
Yeah.
Hard punished.
But they counterpick themselves, right? They pick Gnar into blind pick Yone.
Yeah, and like the Yone, if you think it's going mid, well, they picked Seraphine for mid, so like, okay.
Yeah, that's also just free real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about Immortals now. Immortals, not the worst weekend, but nothing to show for it. No dubs.
Yeah, unfortunately for Immortals, they didn't get a win this weekend, but it felt like, it felt like a bit of an internal win where the fruits of their labor seem to be paying off a little. And I think
people are definitely respecting this team a lot more, even though they haven't been picking up wins, which is pretty rare.
Yeah, and I feel like the place to start is top lane with Revenge. He seems to be turning it around, I guess, because he seemed to be kind of getting the brunt of a lot of the flame towards Immortals, both last split and the beginning of this split. And ever since the player break, he seems to be playing well, I guess. I don't know, it just not inting.
Yeah, and he was inting really hard. You mentioned how we were critical early this split and last split. That was for good reason. He was running it down. He was really, really bad, if we're being completely honest. And so it's nice to see. It's nice to see him have a little bounce back. And it's not just him. The team's looking so much better. I saw freaking Power of Evil outroam Jojo Pune this weekend. What the fuck am I watching? Yes, he's playing Talia, and Talia roams really, really well. But like, so does Ari, which is what Jojo was playing. Ari's a pretty good roaming champion as well. Good wave clear, and you could roam pretty easily. And well, PoE outroamed him, which was honestly impressive. Ignar Amumu, great, really great game on the Amumu. He did get picked off the one time where you could tell they weren't on the same page, but for the most part, this team actually does seem to be on the same page with a lot of their engages, and I feel like the CC is being chained really, really nicely with the Amumu into like the Yone, I think it was in that particular game. What else? Did he play? He played Nautilus, I think.
Yeah, in the second game, 100T.
Yeah, and even the Nautilus didn't look too bad either. Honestly, really, really the big difference maker that made things swing in their favor a little bit as well. Even though they didn't pick up the win in that game either. So really impressed out of Ignar, and I think to me the biggest difference from last split to this split, while there are a lot of things to point to, I definitely think the support is the biggest gap. Destiny was awful.
Yeah. ADC is still unfortunately not so great, but Ignar definitely seems to be one of the better players on this team, and feels like blame TSM again, but it feels like the whole rumors about Ignar maybe going to TSM split or beginning of this year. Him playing as well as he is, I feel like if you're on TSM right now, you're kind of like, oh fuck, man, why didn't we sign this guy when we could have? Because he's been great all split long. Like all split long, he's been really good. His ADC is kind of sandbagging him.
Yeah, that's true. The game against EG, I remember seeing it was like 37 or 30
or something.
Well, there was that, but it was like almost 40 minutes into the game. It was like really late, and Lost was still on like 3 items against Danny Jinx, who's got full items, and I'm just like, oh my god, the Flame Horizon bot gap happening right now. It's so bad. You're trying to fight when the other team has a 6-item Jinx, and your Aphelios is still sitting on 3 items, or 3 items and boots or whatever. Like, you're so behind. It's just not how you win fights, right? But anyway. Yeah, no, not much more for me to say on Immortals. We definitely it's crazy the change from like a month ago. We were saying that there's a lot of careers going to be ended on this team. We were saying that there's no world where they're not finishing last. They were hands down the worst team. No one was close to as bad as they were. Yeah. And the thing is too is like you heard we had some players get in late and we weren't able to practice with them. We've heard that excuse so many times. So I didn't take it serious. Like, I'll just admit, I didn't take it serious. Why would I? I've heard that so many times. Well, we didn't get to practice that much. But it's true that now that they are getting scrims together with this roster, they do look so much better. So, like, hats off to them. Who's next?
Well, we got our three remaining teams of 100 Thieves, Unisys, and FlyQuest. EG, they got the 2-0. They ended up beating Immortals and FlyQuest. FlyQuest unfortunately went 0-2, dropping games to EG and Cloud9. 100 Thieves so extended their winning streak by beating. Who did they beat? They beat Dig and somebody else. Immortals.
IMT.
Yes.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk too much about that, 100T Immortals game when we were talking about it. That was just kind of a weird game where 100T won one fight and then just won the game because they had it was just seemed like perfect timing where they wiped the enemy team. They already had a mid wave that was pushing in their favor, and they just ran it down mid end of the game because of death timers that were exceeding 30 seconds. But looking at 100, they continue to slowly improve week over week. Abadage once again continues to show that currently performing like the best player on this team, I think.
I didn't think he had that great of a weekend.
Yeah, but I mean,
gonna say it.
He wasn't so great in the Immortals game. The other game I thought he was decent.
He's definitely looking so much better, and that is still the story with 100 Thieves. I just think that the Immortals game, his positioning on Talia was so disrespectful. Like, I don't know how he's getting himself in these positions, and then not flashing out once you are getting picked. That was like a couple of times he died with Ghost and Flash available, where it's like, dude, you have no business standing where you're standing. I'm so much more like forgiveful, if that's the right word, for those plays, just because of how good he looked like last week, for example. But like, I was all aboard like the Abadage hype train, and I still am to a certain extent. Whereas like, I didn't think he looked that good this weekend, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean,
But,
it was hard to
in the Immortals game, he did like find the pick against PoE, the Talia knockback or whatever, was the thing that ended up winning them that fight. I think they hard chunk Power of Evil on the Swain, and then he has to blow Hourglass, and then he has to flash it, and he's got nothing left to defend himself, and they end up chasing him down and killing him. So I will give Abadage the credit there, because I think the final team fight was in big part due to him finding that pick.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it was kind of hard to stand out in that Dignitas game when all the action was happening top lane, where they gave Someday the big counter pick, Silas top into the Gnar, and Hoon probably had one of the like worst LCS debuts I think I've ever seen. Unfortunately
Got
for that
smacked
guy.
around.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
was a lot of flame being thrown his way on Twitter and Reddit after that game. It was deserved, but man, he had
And
a
then like the
rough
tower
game.
dive, he cancels the auto, and then you just see that classic where like it happens so often. You see it all the time where the tower dive just didn't have enough damage, and then you see that top laner who's still taking turret aggro, trying to chase down the guy, and there's just no chance he's getting that kill before the tower wipes him out. And you just you even heard the casters just like, oh no, it's so sad.
Yeah,
Yeah, not the debut he was looking for.
I'm gonna throw Hoon a little bit of a bone here because I have to think that the nerves got the better of him in that game just because of the amount of mechanical misplays that happened. The first solo kill, he misses the hop on top of Someday's head to get away. So, he basically misses the hop and doesn't hit his head, so he doesn't get that extra bounce and dies because of it. The second solo kill, he missed 2 Qs and his W. He was gonna win that all in if he hit one of those 3 spells, 2 of the Qs, or just that 1 W. He wins that team fight, and honestly, he was even laning pretty well against Someday for the most part, despite the 2 solo kills. Before the third one, he was up 25 CS in lane, and so his laning was decent, but just when it came to those clutch moments of fighting those 1v1s in the early game, he just ended up missing all of his skill shots. So I'm going to throw Hoon a little bone there and say the nerves probably got the better of him. Obviously, he didn't look good in the next game after as well, but I'm hoping that he's going to look as bad next week because I don't want him to get all that flame again. Poor guy.
I agree. Last thing I'll say on 100 Thieves is, even though I didn't think they had the greatest weekend, you could still see when it comes to fight, they are on the same page. Like, there was a lot of times where like where Dignitas is trying to flank on them, and they fight their way out of the flank, which is usually what you want to do. It's so much easier said than done. Where like you push towards the flank so that you don't get caught by like the Gnar in this case or whatever. They did a really good job of that. Even later, there was a TP flank from the Ahri. They just ran towards the Ahri and forced her to use her ultimate and use her abilities before the team could join the Ahri. So like really good team fight instincts out of 100 Thieves, and that's a good sign with like a team's not even having their best weekend that they can still team fight. Let's be honest, team fights is where so many games are decided. And that's something that 100 Thieves still has in their back pocket. So, yeah, they looked pretty good.
Moving on over to Evil Geniuses, they obviously almost had that scare against Immortals, which would have been based on Cloud9 and 100 Thieves going 2-0. That loss, if they were to have lost to Immortals, that could potentially be a turning point in their season because they still would have had to play both 100 Thieves and coming up. But they got the 2-0, so they still have that 1-game advantage up on 100 Thieves and 2-game advantage on that 3-way tie for third place. But I think kind of saw out of EG in their game against FlyQuest once again how strong and coordinated this team is. I think at the beginning of the game, people were like, "Oh shit, what's going on?" Philip gets 2 early kills where turn around a gank, and then unfortunately Jose Diodo starts going a bit crackhead mode, and they're trying to 1v1 Wukong. You're an 80 champion, you don't try to 1v1 Wukong unless you're massively ahead because that champion just gains a bunch of stats for free. Fortunately, Jose Diodo made that mistake there, and EG just kind of clobbered FlyQuest.
Yeah, the story for EG from my point of view this weekend is a very short one. It's I thought inspired 1v9 this weekend. This to me was the solidifying front runner discussion. Like I think he was already the front runner for MVP. It kind of happens every split where you have a couple of guys that you talk about that could be the MVP. And then there's one weekend where they absolutely pop off and they just steal it. This was one of those. Now, I wouldn't say that there was a couple of guys that were being talked about for the MVP, but this is that weekend where like he was already one of the front runners and just had a 1v9 performance weekend where it's just like, yep, MVP's his. And so I think there's going to have to be it's a really big long shot for that to change over the next there's 5 games left. There's 2 weekends. There's 1 week and then a super week, I think.
Yep, there's 5 games left, so 2 weeks and
yeah,
one of them just...
I don't see it changing. I don't see it changing. I think that he locked up the MVP after this weekend. His Wukong was great in both games.
If you had to pick another 2 players, let's just say, to throw in the hat, who would?
2 players. Let me think.
It can also be on EG if you think.
Well, yeah, my first instinct is Danny. I know Berserker had a great weekend. I still think Danny's the best ADC this split. I know a lot of people are gonna not like that because how dare you not say the Korean AD carry is the best AD carry in the league, and how dare you pick any town, blah blah blah. Yeah, I still think Danny's the best AD carry in the league at the moment, and Berserker's probably just a little bit behind him, in my opinion. I guess that the only other guy that I could think maybe would be Berserker behind him then for another MVP guy.
Yeah,
I think anybody else on C9.
Yeah,
I don't think it's anybody on TL. 100 Thieves, like closers had a good split, but not like that, like 1v9 closer that we've seen. Like he's had a great split. I don't know if I would say MVP worthy. I don't got anybody else.
Yeah, I would probably only put Danny and Abadage in there. Yeah,
Abadage had a pretty slow start to the split though. That's why I thought about him, but I can't. He had a pretty rough start where we thought it was going to be another rough one again. We thought it was going to be another rough split.
I think he's come on pretty strong, so I think he sort of warrants being in the conversation. And I also think he's pretty much been the main. I think that 100 Thieves is winning games. I've said this before in other weeks that I don't think Someday is playing as insane as he was earlier on. I don't think their bot lane is playing as insane as they used to. Although I think they're still playing very solidly, but I just think that Abadage is sort of he's the closer of the team right now.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't think I can put anybody from TL in there. I don't think I can put anybody from C9 in there. The only person I probably would put is Berserker, but I still would favor Danny over him, although I think it's very close. I think both players mean a lot to their team, and I think that EG puts more resources into Danny in late game as opposed to Cloud9, whom seem to have a very early game focused identity with their bot lane, and then sort of they shift then their focus to mid and top because we've Fudge. He is often playing the late games, dish out most of the damage, and is the sort of player to watch in those late game team fights. I mean, we've seen it all the time, like Gangplank, Gwen, Kale. I played like 3 Gwen games, 2 Gangplank games, 2 Kale games. Like he's literally just playing late game scaling, and Berserker is often playing these more early game centric champions. So I just think that Danny, he's gotten the more resources and the more flashy plays, which I just think is why he's naturally above them. Although I do think they're very, very close in terms of skill. I don't think there's like a
The
clear
thing
cut
is,
one is better than the other. I think it's really, really close. And I'm kind of glad that we have these 2 guys that are vying for the number 1 spot because iron sharpens iron. So
I like I don't mind the resources thing. Like Danny gets more resources for me. He does something with the resources,
no, I
man.
agree.
You see what happens when
And
that guy picks
but
Ezreal?
and
Like
I just
holy
think it's
shit.
a differing of game plans from both teams, and I think that's totally fine. You know, we kind of see with the Evil Geniuses, it's about JoJo and Inspired moving around the map and doing things in the early game, whereas Cloud9's identity is sort of playing around bot lane, getting early game dragons, and then taking that power and putting it into their top side with Jensen and Fudge.
Yeah. And anyways, last up, let's talk about FlyQuest a little bit. Not much for me to say on FlyQuest either. Just a little bit surprised, I guess. You mentioned the Jose Deodo trying to 1v1 the Wukong. Like, yeah, that even Jat mentioned on broadcast, like he plays a lot of Lee Sin. I'm surprised that he doesn't know he can't take that fight, which I kind of agree with. Um, in the game against EG though, like they start snowballing that game in the top side. Again, I got to give credit to Jose for that. He's been doing really well with working with Philip. I think that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen Philip struggle that much. I guess we did see Philip struggle a little bit in the Cloud9 game because I think he could have hard smashed that lane even more against Fudge if he didn't like take a tower shot early. Like he jumps in too aggressively, takes the tower shot, and he ends up having to base in the early game twice without buying anything outside of like I don't know, maybe he bought a pot or something, or like a refillable pot. So like there's just we've been told many times by like the LCS broadcast that the word around Philip is to not expect much out of the laning phase, and I think that's shown to be mostly true. But that he's still playing way above what was expected out of him. So even though it's like we saw a little bit of weakness out of Philip this weekend, I still think he's playing a lot better than what you could expect.
Yeah, I just think that FlyQuest ran into 2 teams that were better than them, are just better than them in
Agreed.
general. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that FlyQuest is not a threat or can't win games against these teams. Sometimes you're going to lose to 2 of the top teams in the league, and that's okay.
Yeah. What are they? 7-6?
Yep, they're the
Yeah.
6th place team right now. Obviously, have that 3-way tie for third, but that only puts them 1 game out of potentially being 3rd place. So if FlyQuest picks up some games, obviously they had a very difficult weekend, so I would assume some easier matchups in their last 5 games of the season because I think they've already played EG, C9, and TL their second round robin. I think 3 of their first 4 games in the second round robin were 3 of the top 4 teams in the league. They still have 100T to play, I believe. But I think we'll see it later, obviously, when we talk about the
I
matchups.
think
But
Fly beat 100 Thieves, didn't they, in the first round? Or
yeah,
maybe I'm
in
making that up.
in the first round they did.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought. Interesting. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, that's about it for me on FlyQuest. I guess I didn't like Takui being on a collie. I didn't think he could do much that game. That was I don't know. They got shit on
Yeah,
that
I
game.
mean, he
So
also kind of misplayed in the early game as well, but
yep, he died and lost his flash and gave a kill to JoJo on the Azir, and yeah, can't be doing that. Okay, let's shift things over to the LCS 10th anniversary content. Just a little thing we wanted to talk about. Some interesting stuff coming out of it. JNT, I'll let you lead this discussion.
yeah, I don't know. The whole 10-year anniversary thing is something that Riot has been utilizing this split, or not this split, this year, because I think they have it like in their little transition with the logo. It's like LCS, and I don't know. It's cool to
Mm-hmm.
recognize that the LCS has been around for 10 years. However, now they're actually doing something with it, and they're releasing content with the top 10 pentakills ever in the LCS, and the top 10 memes, and who were some of the best players in their specific roles. And over the last few days during this LCS weekend, I think we saw some content around this, which I thought was pretty interesting. And we don't really get to see a lot of content from the LCS themselves, and I think it's a part of the broadcast that people have sort of brought up some concerns with, partially because you kind of look over at the LEC and they're always doing all these, fun content pieces with players, and it's always great to see, the personalities. One thing that we completely forgot to mention last week, which I'll bring up right now because they did it again this week, but having Fudge on their broadcast after they played their first game on Saturday. So we totally forgot to talk about this last week, and we realized right after, like, oh shit, we didn't even talk about this. But they had Whippo on the analyst desk, the cast, and doing a post-game interview for one game. And then this week they had Fudge doing it. So, I mean, hopefully they're going to do it next week as well with somebody, obviously, has the gift of gab and can sort of, make it a little more fun and everything. But I've enjoyed, watching those interviews, hearing their opinions on the game. I think in both games where we saw Fudge and Whippo being on the cast, they've brought a lot of good insight to the game that we don't always see because we're not, behind the scenes in the league, and they're talking about scrims, talking about matchups, and it's really interesting.
We haven't done Bean Soup Award in a while, and you just inspired one for me, JNT. Okay. I'm giving it to Mark Zimmerman because for the last couple of weeks, I've posted this take that teams should do content with each other, and I think that would be great. And I think Whippo and the Fudge thing is a perfect example of like how people like to see these teams interact with one another, and I think that's a good example as to why content can be good. The other thing is we have Champions Queue now, where teams are a lot more active in conversing with other players from other teams. I feel like you could get to know each other so much better because Champions Queue exists, and so I would like to see some content done between teams. I think that would just be really, really interesting and good for the league. And Mark Z won't pull my take that I've posted twice in the last weeks for Hotline League. So bean soup to Mark. That was what I posted tonight as well. And then he's like, oh shit, I already pulled a content take. So he's like, come up with something else, Blue Jay. He's like, you're going to be next up. So just talk about something with Team Liquid. And I'm like, okay, I'll try to think of something. Bean soup, Mark Z. What a guy.
But just sort of get back to the LCS 10th anniversary content, the first thing that they released was the LCS. They released a thing called the top 5 top laners of all time in the LCS, and I'll just read it out really quickly. We're not going to do like a deep dive into it or anything because I think it was just a bit of fun. But for the top 5 top laners of all time, they had Impact number 1, Someday number 2, Monster number 3, Dyrus number 4, and Balls and Darshan tied for number 5. Funny enough, top 5 top laners, but there's 6 of them. Nice.
Yeah, I just wouldn't have had Balls number 5. Balls had a really good start to his LCS career, but let's be honest, he kind of fell off pretty hard as time went on. And I know there's the meme D2 Balls, but I do think that kind of speaks to how he fell off. Like, if you can't even get out of Diamond 2 when it comes, even if you're in a different region, that's not a good look. And yes, he got a pentakill at that world because Darius was busted. But yeah, I think the list is mostly accurate. I agree with the top 5 for the most part.
Yeah, I don't think I would remove or add any players into it. The only one that I would consider maybe is Huni, putting him in there potentially.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, true. I didn't think about that.
Obviously, his best days were in other regions because it was his time in Fnatic on 2015 and his time
Immortals,
on SKT.
though, man.
Well, I know, but one thing that I would also say is it does seem like they skewed this a little bit to some of the more successful top laners, not necessarily the best like individual performers. I mean, that makes sense because obviously you can't compare players who are playing in season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to ones that are playing now because obviously the players now are going to be infinitely better than the previous one. But as when it comes to the list, I think the only thing that I don't really agree with is I think I would have had Hanser at 2. Someday at 3. I do think that, there's a little bit of recency bias going on with Someday. I've said this in the past, but I've praised Someday recently because I think he's playing very, very well. But there was a stretch of time for about 2 years where Someday was not very good.
And he was overrated as well. Like they continued to talk about. I remember having this conversation with you where he wasn't good. I totally agree. And the broadcast or just the community sentiment around that player was that he still was that good. And I agree with you. There was a time where Someday didn't look that good. And people just pointed out to, oh, he's on 100 Thieves and the rest of the team sucks at that time. But he wasn't playing that great either. So I agree with you. I could see that argument.
Yeah, and I just think people kind of forget how good Hanser was also back in the day. He was, after replacing Dyrus, he was the best top in the league for about two years, and even before he came to TSM and was on Team Gravity, that was a team that had a bunch of no names, and he was one of the reasons why that team was a playoff contender and almost went to Worlds that year. Like
Mm-hmm.
they got reverse swept by Cloud9 in the Gauntlet. Like that was obviously when Cloud9 made that miracle run, but they were a game away from playing a series away from going to Worlds, and like that's kind of impressive in and of itself. I'll continue to mention this as well. Hanser should have won MVP in 2017 spring. It should not have been Arrow. That is the wackest shit I think I've ever seen when it comes to like voting, when it comes to like whatever all pro MVP, coach of the split, whatever. 2017 spring, Hanser should have been the MVP, not Arrow. That was some hard robbery right there.
Dude, I think the one split Jensen got robbed. Which one was that where Jensen was hard smurfing the league and they gave it to Bjergsen in the one split? Do you remember which one I'm
And
talking about?
don't know if it was season 6 summer or if it was season 8 spring or something. Maybe it wasn't spring. Maybe it was
There
season
was
8
a
summer.
split where like Jensen was the kill leader, and look, I know, oh, he
That was
got the
season
most
6
kills,
summer.
lol.
That was
Like
season 6 summer. That's
he
the one.
absolutely ran over the league. It was so 1v9. I could not believe he didn't get MVP that split. I remember being so surprised.
I think part of it was
Um,
because TSM like was the 17-1 team, and they were kind of smurfing the whole league. But I definitely agree with you. I think Jensen was just by far and away, dominating everybody, whereas TSM was just as a team way better than everybody. But
yeah.
Jensen was just outplaying the fuck out of everyone.
So is the LCS? Do you know are they going to do other top 5 for the other positions? Is that what we're thinking they're going to do? Have they come
I
out with
hope
other ones
so.
already?
Well, not any other roles ones, but they have like best pentakills of all time, best memes of all time. I thought the memes one was kind of funny. Number one was like Silver
Yeah.
Scrapes.
Okay.
They had Dig Baron
I
in
have a
there.
couple of things to ask you though. I have a couple of things to ask you. Did you so I didn't watch the Pentakill one. Was there anything from the Pentakill video that you're like, "Oh, there was like I can't believe this Penta wasn't in there."
No, we're we're all pretty reasonable.
So those were all because the memes one, I did watch the memes and there was so many that I thought were missing. I still liked the list anyways, but there was a lot like I thought No Sneaky No Worlds would be like a great meme. No? Like I thought that was like one of the better ones that would be on the list. But I guess not.
Yeah, once again, I
Um
think with these sort of things, they definitely seem to be going for the more like nostalgic type of stuff rather than like trying to grade players and grade plays and be like, okay, like, oh, this one's like, it seems that they're going for the more nostalgic thing, which I get. What I would do.
I mean I didn't like it's not one of those lists where I'm like I can't believe this one's number 1 or I can't believe this one's not even on there. It was just like there was so many it made me realize there was so many LCS memes because there was a bunch of them that weren't on there and I was like holy shit like I wrote down a list. There's No Sneaky No Worlds, Body by Jensen,
Yeah,
Bjergsen
I'm
4
surprised
wards.
that one. Surprised the Jensen one wasn't.
Bjergsen in 4 wards, like that's one of the originals. The LCS pigeon thing, not that I think it should have been on there, but that's another meme. Sven Skaren and his Live Evil stuff. This one I'm not surprised at all isn't on there, but Bud Light Ace. Like there's so many memes in the LCS. But what I loved about the video is like for me, I think it does a really good job of helping the newer LCS fans learn about some of the memes that they wouldn't know about if they've only been following the league the last couple of years. And that's one thing that I really liked when they were showing like one of the Dignitas Barons or they're showing Skara talk about I think it was Coast where
Yeah,
he's like this team is winning until they lose. Like that's stuff
that
that
shit
like
is
I'm
so
really
funny.
glad they brought back some stuff. So I thought it was great. I really enjoyed the meme one. I still have to watch the Pentakill one, but it just made me realize there's so many LCS memes. And yeah, I thought it was great.
You want to guess what the number one penta was if you haven't watched it?
I have to guess it's Danny.
Yeah, it was the Danny one.
I mean, bro.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Come
literal
on.
1v5 penta.
Dude, that is like the dream. That could be on number 1 in the list of pentas for like I don't know, maybe ever.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's some really nice pentas, but like
trying to think of
dude,
like best pentas ever. ones that come to mind are the Reckless one, and Game 5 of Finals in Season 5 Summer, and it was Fnatic versus Unicorns of Love. There was the Deft one in MSI 2015 Finals, where you got a Penta on Sivir.
I don't remember any of these, but I would remember if I saw them. I'd be like, "Oh yes, that."
Reckless was playing Tristana in that one, and Def was playing Sivir. It was, I don't know if it was Game 5 of MSI Finals. It might have been. I'm not sure.
Wait, was that a play where they both penta each other, or is that something else?
I mean, it might have been. Maybe it was Quadra versus Penta. I'm not sure. I do know what you're
I
talking about when you
remember,
said that.
I remember a penta where both teams penta each other. I'm like, "Holy shit!"
I don't know. I don't know about, but I think I'm not sure. But there's a few.
Okay.
I'm trying to the other main ones in that LCS one. Was the Wild Turtle one was up there. Like him getting a Penta in his first game. The Altec one where he's on Echo Fox. What that was like when they were playing Funnel. That was in Season 8 Summer. Forget what other ones.
Funnel cringe.
Yeah, Funnel was kind of cringe. I liked playing it though. I had so much fun playing that. Like I would just shit on people. Like I would just get one of my
As
friends.
fun as you would have playing Fiddlesticks.
Okay.
For those that don't know, I got Jay. Well, I don't know. Let's not say I got you to play Fiddlesticks, but the other day I was saying to JNT that like Fiddlesticks is one of the funnest champions in the game, and I will stand by that. And he's like, "No, that champion's boring." But to JNT's credit, today he messaged me that he had fun playing Fiddlesticks, and I've never been more proud in my life.
Yeah, I got Fiddlesticks in an ARM. I was out of rerolls, and all the champions at the top sucked. So I was like, I guess I'm playing Fiddlesticks, and I almost one of my my friends stole my Penta. I almost got a Penta in that game. Literally got stolen. The guy was 1 HP,
Damn.
and they stole my Penta. Like it was a 4-man ult. I absolutely owned them, and then my Penta gets stolen. I'm pissed about that.
You gonna take it
still.
to the Rift?
Yeah.
You gonna play Fiddlesticks on the Rift?
Maybe. I tried to play it
Not
one
in
time.
ranked,
I
though,
tried.
right?
I tried to play it one time today. It got banned. The enemy team banned Fiddlesticks 3 games in a row when I tried to play it.
In norms, right? You're not
Yeah.
playing that shit in ranked, are you?
Yeah, I was literally looking up YouTube videos how to do the jungle clear as I'm like in champion select.
Nice. I like it. All right, let's move on. Let's get to the predictions. This is gonna hurt, so just do it. Band-aid right off JNT.
Oh yeah.
Show the
Okay.
predictions. Show how I'm getting smacked around again. Dude, week 1, I'm hard down, right? And I climb all my way back, and now I'm just falling right back down again.
Yeah. For the audio only people, my record now is 43-22. Blue Jay is 40-25. A couple of things to note though. Before the LCS weekend actually started, I switched my TSM Golden Guardians prediction over to Golden Guardians. Even though I picked
Lol.
TSM during the episode, but they had traded for River, so I was like, obviously Golden Guardians is gonna win. And fuck that. And then Jamie, he picked Dignitas against CLG, but they had just lost River, so he switched to there. But nonetheless, me backing myself against Cloud9 versus Team Liquid, I got that. And then I don't remember the other game we lost out on. I think it was also Golden Guardians again.
Yeah.
It was Golden Guardians versus CLG.
CLG, yeah.
Alrighty, but we'll get into this fast. Speaking of Golden Guardians 100 Thieves.
100 Thieves. I can't do it. I can't I have been like the Golden Guardians apologist this year. I don't know how much more I can do it, man. Holy. I said last week I was going to lose it if Golden Guardians went 0-2, and I was losing it.
Unfortunate. Next up, Evil Geniuses versus TSM. Evil Geniuses.
EG, and then we got TL versus FlyQuest. This one's an interesting one. Where do I want to go with this?
Well, I'm picking Team Liquid.
I'm going to go Team Liquid as well. I still have faith. I don't know why, because every week there seems to be a new problem with this team, but yeah, I don't know. I guess they got to pick it up eventually. Team Liquid. CLG versus Cloud9 is the next game. Cloud9 had a really good weekend. I guess so did CLG, but I'm still going to go Cloud9 because I guess we just anticipate them to be ramping up. I'm not quite as hot as them as you are, JNT, but they are looking better, so Cloud9 for me.
Yet, last up, Immortals versus Dignitas. Potential comeback attempt for Dignitas. This would get them into a tie for last place instead of being in last place. But yeah, I don't think I can do it. I'll probably stick with the more funny
Immortals
because
is looking good in their
oh, yeah.
losses.
It's funny because up until last week roster, I probably would have after the way that looked last weekend and the way that Immortals looked despite the 0-2, I'm going to go with Immortals.
Yep, me too. Okay, first game on Sunday, we have FlyQuest versus CLG. Interesting.
CLG, baby.
I think I'm going to go FlyQuest. I don't think that this is like a crazy upset either way. Like, I think
Yeah, I
this
don't
is
think so.
probably a 50-50 game. Um, I also got to start taking some different things if I want to catch up. I got 2 weeks to catch up. I got to make some different picks here, try to climb my way back in here. Yeah.
All right, next up,
C9
Cloud9
versus
100
100
Thieves.
Thieves. You're
I don't know
going
where.
Cloud9, and I'm going 100 Thieves.
Okay,
Right?
easy as that. Yeah.
Okay.
Next up, Evil
EG versus
Geniuses.
Team Liquid. Well,
Going Team Liquid. I don't know why, but
interesting. Are you going to chicken out last second? I'm going EG.
I'm gonna go Team Liquid. I feel like it's in the script for TL to win, so
I considered taking TL here as well. The thing is, the last time these two teams played, EG did get the better of them. I just thought it was a well played game by both teams. Like, I wasn't too upset when TL lost. I thought they played okay.
was
Just a
that
couple of
the
mistakes.
Zillion game with Hansama and Lucian?
That was the one where Hans Sama ran it down. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So Hansama,
The
don't run
rest
it
of
down for my
TL had a
sake.
the rest of TL had a great game. So like, I don't think this is as lopsided as people think it is. But I'm still going EG. Then it's Immortals and Golden Guardians. Oh my god. My instinct just had me say Immortals.
Golden Guardians for me.
Holy. Yeah, I'm gonna go Immortals here. Do we have 4 different picks on Sunday?
Uh, so far, yeah. I think you went 100 Thieves over
Yeah.
Cloud9.
Yeah.
This is a make or break week. I said last
Yeah,
week.
this is
It's
gonna
funny.
yeah, this is
I
gonna
said
look bad.
last week that last week was going to be the make. Now it's this week.
This is
Different.
gonna look either so good or so bad. Okay, then last game TSM versus Dignitas. I am gonna go TSM.
Yeah, I'm going to go TSM as well. Even though these two teams suck, I'm going to take the veterans over the rookie solos.
Dignitas better ban Bard. That's all I gotta say. I thought Chime looked so much better on it. So anyway. Okay, quick news.
Yeah. Kind of touched on it, but when it came to Misfits selling their LEC spot, obviously Team Heretics, there was a little bit of drama from Team Heretics. There were a few people on Twitter, former employees, calling them out for some unpaid work, as well as one person who had revealed that Heretics had filed a lawsuit against them or threatened to file a lawsuit against them because they made a tier
Ooh.
list on their Twitch stream. So
Oh man, that's not a good look at all.
that's some TSM shit right there. So they're not even in the league yet, but Team Heretics is already starting up drama. So we'll just have to see where this goes.
Drama could be a good thing. It could be a really bad thing, but it could be a good thing for a league.
And then, oops, I still have the prediction. Go away.
And then last up, the T1 crazy motherfucking fans.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
happened here, JNT? I don't know what this is. This just seems whack to me.
yeah. So most of our North American fans here probably don't keep up with the LCK, but obviously the LCK being one of the premier leagues in the entire world also comes with a very critical fan base, and we've heard a lot of stories, specifically surrounding with their fans being let's say a little over enthusiastic. A few things that I can remember pointing out was when there was that time where T1 was bad and they had benched Faker and they had got some fan to like drive outside of the headquarters with like an LED sign saying something. Like, do you remember like hearing that back when?
I do remember hearing something about that. Were they the team that got sent flowers or something? Like they were dead or something?
I don't know. Maybe there was also the whole drama when LS was potentially rumored to be joining the team as a member of the coaching staff, and like there was a huge backlash from the KR community about that. And right now, after I guess this would have been before T1's loss to Gen G. This specific fan community created a letter the T1 organization demanding that their head coach resign and they bring in some new coaching staff basically just flaming the last couple of years of the T1 organization because in their eyes they haven't been doing as well as they should be. I mean, what do you want to say? Like T1 just went to MSI finals the year before. They're in Worlds finals. To me, I think they've been doing a pretty good job of turning it around since they kind of hit that little slump in seasons 8 and 9. So once again, fucking crazy LCK fans. I don't even know what to say.
Some fans just have no chill. And you know what I feel bad for? This reminds me of like how people just kind of get everyone gets painted with the same brush. Like it kind of happens with TSM fans, right? Because TSM fans could be crazy as well. Maybe not this crazy, but like crazy. And so people always be like TSM fans XD. But then there's like some perfectly normal TSM fans that are like, dude, I just want to cheer for my team, you know? Like I'm not crazy. I'm not making Reddit posts about this, that, the other. And I feel like T1 fans are kind of being painted with the same brush, even though they're not all crazy as well. But holy shit, man. Some people gotta fucking relax. Unreal.
Yep. Kind of funny at the same
Actually
time,
unreal.
but
And like on the Reddit post, it was saying like they expected a response by T1 or whatever.
yeah,
Like, who
it's
are
so funny.
you? Like, what the hell, man? Yeah, crazy motherfuckers.
Alrighty, well, that's it
That's
for the
it,
quick
right?
news, but wanted to do a little
Oh,
LEC talk
oh
for
yeah.
the people that know Blue Jays a big and watches, pretty much equivalent amount of LEC compared to the LCS, which is every game.
I watch all the games. Yeah.
Yeah. And that league seems to be spicing up a little bit. Mad Lions have seemed to completely turn the tables after bringing in Niski. Rogue once again is getting right into their form of throwing the season away right as it's coming to before playoffs. G2 is doing their normal trolling thing and not looking very good to where they might all of a sudden playoffs begin get really good. XL is miraculously a playoff contender now. And I think the weirdest part about the entire split of the LEC so far is how horrid Fnatic look, specifically Razork.
Yeah. Yeah, Razork looks like shit. I
Yeah.
agree. I'll do my quick notes off the teams that come off the top of my head, and for those listening on YouTube or wherever for that matter, feel free to comment and tell me where I'm crazy or stuff you disagree with, because I don't know, I don't really get to converse very often about LEC with people so much, right?
Yeah,
Obviously, me
I,
and
don't, I
JT
don't
talk
watch
about
too much
everything else. Yeah.
LEC.
So my one, I think Mad Lions is great. JT knows this. I remember saying to him that they were the best team in the league when they were 4-3. I was like, this team is the best. This team is going to win LEC. They haven't done that yet, but they're my favorite. I think Niski's definitely looking like the MVP, and I'm glad. It sounds like the community sentiment is finally catching up with that as well. I think anyway. He's an absolute monster. XL, good team, not a great team. They're the other team that I cheer for. I pretty much cheer for those two teams. XL is good. They're not great. They're probably going to finish around with like the same win percentages they have now. What is XL? Are they like 8-5 or are
They're
they
7-6, I think.
7-6? Yeah, that seems about right. I think I said to you, J&T, it might have been on this podcast, it might have just been in Discord, that they are approximately a 10-8 team. Was that you that I said that to?
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't think that's changed. I think that's still where they're at. Rogue, I think, has leveled out as to where they should be. I think they're 8-5. Is that if that's right?
Yep, tie with
That to me is
Vitality,
where I
8 and
think they
5.
should be.
Vitality, tie for second, 8
Yeah,
and 5.
I'll
Come
get
on.
to them. I'll get to them. I'll get to them. Rogue, I think, is good team. Again, not great, just a little bit better than XL. I don't think their bot lane is particularly amazing. Haven't really been too impressed with the Rogue bot lane. So even though they were on that huge win streak, I was waiting for Mad Lions to catch them. It seems like that has happened. G2, I thought G2 was still a good team. This weekend I'm a little bit questioning that. I'm not very impressed with Yankos at the moment. I think he's got to really turn it around. Vitality, I actually thought had a good weekend this past weekend. I still don't think that team's good though. I thought Alfari had a good weekend. I thought Perks had a good weekend. Overall, I think this team is still not that great though. I think your two solid teams in the LCS is still Rogue and Mad Lions, and then maybe XL, but nobody else is really impressing me. And that's my quick thoughts, my quick LEC rundown. Oh, Misfits sucks too. Also, yeah, that team's crap. BDS is crap. SK is okay, but still they're kind of garbage, and that's about it.
Astralis,
Anyone
dude.
that wants to,
Astralis, what about
oh yeah,
them?
they're worse than their record, but still improved. Still improved.
So
And I think that's everyone.
if you
Did I
had to
miss
pick
anyone?
your 4 LEC Worlds teams, and which which seed is which. Give them to me right now.
Mad Lions for sure. Then Rogue. I can't give it to Vitality. Definitely no. I don't think Vitality's gonna go. I think G2 can turn it around. And then with the 4th spot, I guess XL. But take that with a grain of salt because I'm an XL fan. So
I think if I had to pick, I would probably pick Mad 1, G2 2, Rogue 3, Vitality 4. Something along the lines of that.
Ooh.
I don't know. Like who's on XL even? Like I know who's on that team, but like I don't see like them having that player that really pushes them over the edge. And if you're of the opinion that G2 and Vitality are going to benefit from their veterans coming into playoffs, I don't think XL kind of has that same aspect of their team.
Yeah. Mickey, Patrick, Nuke Duck have been around for a while. Marcoon's kind of new, but he's been pretty good. And Finn's been okay. That makes him sound worse than he is. He's been solid, I guess. Not amazing, not terrible.
Not CLG Finn, so we'll take that.
Oh, he's so much better than CLG Finn, no doubt there. But yeah, if anyone has any thing that they agree or disagree with about the LEC, I would like to see some comments around that stuff. I want to know what people think of the LEC. I don't have anything else, J&T. Anything else you got?
No. Pretty chill.
Let's close out the episode. Yeah, I think the LEC's been lots of fun. Yeah, I don't know. Worlds will be great. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, that's it for this episode, guys. Again, we'll be back same time next week. Remember to subscribe, hit the like button, put a comment down, all that stuff that helps us. We appreciate you all. We'll see you guys next week. This has been episode 94, Clown Fiesta Podcast. Bye-bye.